October, we will be featuring clinicians. And thank you, Heather, for agreeing to be highlighted and spotlighted and to share some expertise and some wisdom for people during these trying times that we are in right now.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Heather. So the first question is, why did you become a clinician?
Sure. I became a clinician. I believe it was a calling for me. I was growing up very interested in mental health and just kind of touched in our family and then other friends, and so just kind of did my own research. And I think my last year in college, actually, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then stumbled onto it and realized that I wanted to support people, specifically people of color, because it's such a stigma around mental health. But yeah, I just ended up walking into mental health and began supporting all people in that realm.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping in. And I think it is very important for people of color to be clinicians. So that way we can kind of demystify some of the myths about mental health. So, what is your advice for knowing when to seek professional mental health help?
Sure. I believe when it gets to a point where you find that it begins affecting your daily functioning. And so, when I say daily functioning, it is continuously really, and we know that when it's really continuously affecting, our eating patterns, our sleeping patterns, our relationships with, other people, continuously how we're feeling about ourselves, just, in multiple ways, our schooling, our work habits, those things, when it's really interfering with our day-to-day lives, I think is when we should look to seek out the support of a clinician.
Thank you. Can you please share one myth about seeking therapy?
Sure. We often think that, if we get support from a clinician, or if I go to therapy, I'm crazy. You are not crazy. It is. I'm a spiritual person, so I just believe that the Lord has gifted us each in different ways, and has given us knowledge and gifts in different ways to help support each other. And therapy is one of those ways. Just a different branch of support. So the same way that we go to a doctor, there's certain doctors for different physical ailments. You go to a therapist if there are things that you need to talk through, and you need that support to talk through with someone who has a special type of knowledge and training to help you work through those things.
That's perfect. And I like what you said, having a special knowledge and training. Sometimes we have to get out of thinking that our family and friends can be our therapists.
Right.
You know, like you said, you go to a doctor for different ailments. We
Mm-hmm.
have to make sure we take care of our mind, especially in this season that we're in and in this moment that we're in. Because really and truly, everything I believe starts in the mind. It starts with a thought, right? And
Right.
it just goes
Right.
on from
Sometimes, especially when things get a little heavier, sometimes our family and friends won't, they won't, and they can't tell us everything we need to hear. And no, and sometimes they also don't have that knowledge. So there's both of those pieces.
That's perfect. Thank you. Can you please share the benefits of therapy? I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but if you can just share some other benefits that you believe therapy provides.
Sure. I think providing space, we these days we move so fast, we move through life so fast. It's one thing after the other, and not many times do we have space and make space to really be able to reflect with someone who's non-biased, who's able to kind of provide us with the space that is and should be non-judgmental, and allow us to kind of reflect through those things that we need to work through, and help to provide us that perspective that we need. If we're struggling through some, whether it's life changes, whether it's grief and loss, whatever it is, if we're dealing with even, sometimes a serious mental illness, but whatever, and those helping to equip us with those strategies we need to be able to cope from day to day. And so that helps us to be able to gain those coping skills that we need to be able to then live a more, I would say free life, a more effective life from day to day. We have those skills that we need to really cope effectively and in a healthy manner.
Perfect. And you kind of already got stepped into the next question. So share 1 or 2 tips about coping and dealing with trauma and stress.
Sure. And so one I would say is really specifically with trauma and stress. We're often, if you have experienced or are experiencing trauma often, and stress, often there's this feeling of feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes in a very unhealthy place, and sometimes to the place where we're feeling frozen. And so a couple of things one thing would be kind of a brain dump. A brain dump for me is often helpful. And so the way that kind of you can walk that out is, literally just writing that out. For some people, it's writing that out, list out, whether it's whatever is in your brain, literally just writing that out. For some people who are more artistic, drawing it out. If you're a lyricist, that's why, you see some people kind of just write rhymes or, write a song out, literally getting all of that stuff out of your head, so that you can clear your mind. So doing a brain dump. Another thing is understanding that everything isn't in our control. We can't and don't control everything. And so focusing on what is your sphere of influence, and whatever you can't control, sometimes we have to walk away from that and let that go and focus on what we can control, and then partialize that. And what I mean by partialize is, where do I start? So if I make a list, then where on that list do I start? And I don't worry about or think about all of these other things that I have, or that I have to do, or that has happened to me, or any of those things, because it can be really overwhelming. And so just starting with one thing, and then moving from that, instead of thinking of everything all at one moment.
That's some great advice. Thank you. Um, so if you could, what is one resource that you can share that other people can utilize?
Sure. So I think a great resource, because there's so many resources in that place, is Maryland 211. Calling Maryland 211. So because there's so many resources. If you're looking for a therapist, if there are other case management tools that you need, other workforce opportunities, whatever it is that you're looking for in your area, it's generally 211 can help connect you to that resource. So I think that's a great resource. I know that also online, if you're looking for a specific counselor, clinician, therapist, a lot of people go on, of course, your insurance, if you have insurance, your insurance sites, but then also Psychology Today has a list of a lot of clinicians that you can look, and you can see their profiles and just look through and see who may be a fit for you or not. So those are just a couple of resources out there for folks. With 211, there are emergency, they can connect you with, short-term mental health support, but then also other emergency, resources like Baltimore Crisis Response and other folks like that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those resources. I know that they'll be useful for some people, and I'll look into some myself too to get more familiar as I share with other people. Um,
Sure.
what is your advice for those experiencing grief?
Um, my advice is um, just to realize and recognize that that the grief process looks different for everybody. I think we often, in our wanting to help support people, share our process, and sometimes think that other people's process is going to look just like ours, and everybody's process is different. It often is a long process. Um, I would just say that definitely the support of friends and family is really important, but knowing when to if it begins to interfere with, I mean, because I think we should all expect that at some point it's going to interfere, especially shorter term, it's going to interfere with your daily functioning. And that is to be expected. If you get into a point where you're, a couple of months in and you still can't function, then it's important to try to seek out, some additional support in therapy so that you can begin to work through that even more, and know that it's going to be a process, and that's okay. That process will continue. It's going to continue for months and years, and that's a natural process.
Thank you. Especially in the midst of COVID, I
Absolutely.
find that it's very hard for people to cope. And also, I remember having a conversation with someone. They were saying that, oh, it's only this amount of people have died from the virus. And I'm like, those are people's mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. We can't just, use the numbers, look at numbers. They're actual people. And I think one, first recognizing that they're people, that
Mm-hmm.
actual people's lives have been lost unexpectedly,
Mm-hmm.
um, that families are torn apart, that
Mm-hmm.
it's real. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I think
It's,
that's the first one thing that I try to be conscious of. Like, okay,
yeah.
this is somebody's family member.
It is. It's somebody's family member, and to your point, Melanie, you layer on top of that loss. But in 2020, we have collectively experienced so many other losses, from public losses that we watch on TV, that so many people have connected to in some way. Even if we didn't know them, we've connected to them. But then there, these pieces of, um, you know, everything that has happened with, specifically people of color, literally experiencing trauma. We've experienced trauma pretty much our whole lives, but it's been heightened this year as we watch so much play out on TV, and have relived that. And so you watch these losses on TV or on your cell phone or on social media, on social media outlets. Those are all losses that we're experiencing and that we're seeing, and that's trauma. And then, like you said, with COVID, you're those that are close to you, or those that and those that are other folks that are connected to you. And then the loss of even moving into a virtual environment, those are losses because you don't have those relationships every day anymore. And when you layer all of those pieces, losses of us being able to connect with people every day, to where we are now, you layer all of those pieces, and it becomes very complex. And when we're dealing with the grief and loss, when someone passes now, many of us have funerals. And so you were able to console people and come together. You really can't even do that, and can't grieve in the way that you grieve even before, pre-COVID. And so it's very complex now.
That was a lot. And that's the truth. And it's real. We have endured a lot of loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
And yeah,
it's
go
really
ahead.
important. It's really important that we try to, with all of that, try to replace that as much as possible with phone connections, virtual connections. That yes, there's all of those pieces, but how do we stay connected in some way?
Yeah. Um, that just made me think about something. So, not everyone is able to talk about like the loss that we see publicly, right? With Black Lives Matter and you know, just the movement overall.
Right.
So how if people are not able to talk about it, how do we let people know that it's okay that they still how do they let people know that they still feel or they're still it's not like they don't care about the movement, but I guess to as a way to protect themselves and protect
Hmm.
their peace, they don't
Hmm.
discuss or choose not to engage in certain things. Can you give some advice um around that topic and like how to deal with people that may not want to talk about what's going on?
Sure. So it's funny because I just had a conversation with the group actually just last week, and one of the things that we have talked about is, self care is resistance, right? And so often we don't think about kind of the importance of taking care of ourselves in everything that's going on, and so it is in the movement. Everyone plays a role, everyone has a lane, and so it's important. There are those that are protesting, there are those that, when folks if they happen to unfortunately get arrested and go to jail, there has to be someone who wasn't the protest so that they can bail them out, and there has to be someone else who then is, working on the policy front, and someone else who is, in the office working on some the philanthropy front. And, everybody has to play a role, right? So that we're covering all of these fronts. But as we're doing this, it's heavy work. And we are there's all of these emotions that are driving us. And often because we're so focused and we're driven, we're not thinking about the importance of caring for ourselves and also disconnecting from social media, because as we're doing this, we're taking in social media, we're taking in the news and TV and all of this affects your mental health, whether you realize it or not. And so it's really important that you are making a choice. Sometimes you feel guilty, and other people can make you feel guilty about, well, this is going on, you got to be doing this. But if we are all dead because we've had heart attacks from stress, or because we're already high risk, or we are too depressed because of everything that is going on, that we've absorbed, we are not going to be in tip-top shape to be able to continue. And so it's really important that we do take time to step back, and even thinking about strategy, to take that time to step back, just to disengage, to rest, to disconnect, to not be a part, until we choose to then become a part again. And maybe being a part is not being engaged on that front, but maybe it's caring for and loving on those people who are engaged on the front lines, right? So everybody plays a role, and has a lane, and it's different. It looks different. And so if you continuously say that I'm not going to engage at all, but maybe I'm that person that is reminding those it's okay to self-care. It's time for you to step out and self-care, so I think it's really important to have those conversations and to remember that self-care is resistance.
Thank you. I definitely needed to hear that because I am guilty of not taking care of myself as much as I should. I'm always people minded and people centered, and I keep going and going and going and saying, okay, I gotta, they need me, they need me, they need me. And I had to stop myself, and actually, my body stopped me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and said, Melanie, it's time.
Yep.
You need to step up and do what you have to do for your health so that you can be there to do what it is you need to do for others.
Mm-hmm.
So self-care is definitely important. And as many say, self-care is not selfish and
Yep.
knowing that difference.
Not at all. And we've been programmed to think that it is, and it's not. it is okay to step back.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we have two more questions. Well, actually, one last question. Um, what advice would you give to our young people right now? We hear that a lot of people and parents are saying they're stressed out, with the children being home and the virtual learning and everything like that. But, the more and more I think about it, and youth are really my passion, and the youth are experiencing a lot of trauma themselves, and just I think questioning a lot of different things, or not fully understanding, like this social distancing thing. How it's not, I guess, a youth language. So what would be your advice for our youth in this time, in this
Sure.
in these unprecedented times
Hmm.
that we're seeing?
Um, I think the first thing I would say to them is that that I don't know if this is really advice, but I mean, you matter. You matter. You have purpose, incredible purpose, and your voice matters. And so, I mean, I think to your point, Melanie, I think often we're thinking about kind of ourselves and what's going on, and but our young people, they see everything that's going on. They see everything the same, as we do. I mean, maybe different perspectives, but they see it all. And so it's important that they understand that they have voices that are powerful, that can be the change that our world and our nation needs to be, and they should be secure in knowing and confident in knowing that they belong in spaces, and own that they, just ask to be. We should be inviting them into spaces, but they also, if they're in a position to ask to be in a space to be able to share their voice, or if they're asked to be in a space, absolutely lift your voice and be in that space and share your perspective. And if you need support, ask for that support. Don't wait for someone to ask you if you need, additional support, or, ask for that support. If you're doing well, support your peers. A lot of what we're seeing happening now, and a lot of the shifts that we're seeing happening, and a lot of the advocacy, it's coming from our younger generations, and that's incredible and encouraging to know. And so, that's what I would just say, is just take advantage of every opportunity to lift your voice, to support your peers, to be in spaces that can create change.
Thank you. And thanks again, Heather, for taking the time to chat with us and share with the Love Inc. family just some steps and tips for making it through these trying times. And as we host our virtual um, paint night on October 10th, which is World Mental Health Day, we really want people, the entire month of October, we want to focus on really stepping back and taking note of where we stand mentally, and realizing and recognizing that it's okay to say that we're not okay, but it's not okay to stay there and to be silent. And we have amazing clinicians and resources that are available for people to utilize and to take advantage of. And sometimes it just starts with knowing. And that's why we hope that these series and the people that we'll feature and the information that we'll share, that it will reach the people that they're intended for, and that someone will realize that they are okay and that nothing is wrong with them, but they are just going through this moment, and they just need a little extra help, as we all do sometimes. So thank you. Are there any final words that you want to share with us?
Just that I would share with everybody the same way that I told the youth, that you are here because you matter. You have a purpose. That if you ever feel that you are really having a rough time in life, do not ever hesitate to pick up the phone and ask someone for help, support, assistance. Call that crisis hotline, call that, call for mental health support, call 211, call someone. It does not demonstrate weakness. It actually demonstrates strength when you request support.
Perfect. Thank you so much again. And we look forward to having you back.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you.